The thing with the semiconductor industry is that the demand is so strong right now.
It was an incredible earnings season for chip stocks that are now soaring on skyrocketing demand.
Just recently reported a blowout quarter. Amazon is a major part of their revenue stream.
The first time we're talking about it on the channel, and it looks like such an interesting story.
We recommended it about 9 months ago, before it really had its first big run-up.
Wall Street veteran Marc Chaikin is back with a list of 3 chip stocks the smart money is quietly flowing into.
So it's just not on people's radar screens. It may just be viewed as more of a commodity play in the semiconductor space, but it sure is a profitable commodity play.
Marc, always so great to have you back on the show, and I'm really excited about today's topic. You have some semiconductor names for us, a couple that we've never even talked about on the channel before, so I can't wait to get into your list for us today in just a minute. But let's start with kind of your December outlook. How do you think we're going to be ending the year right now?
As you know from our previous broadcast, I had been looking for a 5% pullback in the S&P 500. In October, it actually happened in November, and then something magical happened. The expectations for an interest rate cut by the Fed went from 30% odds based on the Fed funds futures markets on November 19th to 90%. Based on that, because the stock market wants lower interest rates, likes lower interest rates, you had a spectacular rally in the market, not just in the S&P, but in small cap stocks as well.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing that turnaround. But as we look at the charts at the end of the year, it does look like volatility is the story simply because we saw such a quick dip and then a quick turnaround the other way. And I think you'll see that in some of the charts we're going to look at today. But let's dive right in. Before we get into the 3 names you have for us, a reminder for our viewers, I am looking at which one of these to add to our Bridget's Buys watch list. Again, this is a new list I've created, and I'm picking one stock from the video that we talk about today. So you can scan that QR code and go check out the progress on that list. But towards the end, I'm going to be adding something new to that list. I'm excited to look at what the Power Gauge has to say about these 3 companies today, too. So let's dive into the semiconductor sector as a whole. How has this sector been performing this year?
Well, the semiconductor sector has been leading the market. It had that very sharp, as you just described it, V-shaped bottom along with the market in November. And coming out of that V-shaped bottom, the semiconductor ETF, which we follow, XSD, which is the Spider semiconductor ETF, has gone back to a new high along with the market. So AI clearly has been up to now driving the market. Central to AI are semiconductors.
Very much so. Well, the first one you have for us today on your list of 3 semiconductors that a lot of the market isn't really watching right now is the first time we're talking about it on the channel, and it looks like such an interesting story. Let's get to that first stock on your list, Marc.
First stock is Credo Technologies. The symbol is CRDO. And semiconductors encompass a lot of different aspects of manufacturing and products. And in the case of Credo, they have connectors that move data around in the data centers very quickly. In fact, they're replacing copper cabling in these new data center build-outs because the critical element when you have all those processors, for whether they're from NVIDIA or AMD, is getting them to work together as one supercomputer. And that's what Credo's cables do. Now, the stocks had a very, very big run this year. Just recently reported a blowout quarter. The stock spiked up from 180 to over 210, and it's now pulled back. And it's the pullback that intrigues me. Credo basically said on their management call, all systems are go. Our customers are very, very aggressive in ordering. And that accounted for the spike up. But now you've had a pullback as people have taken profits. And I think this pullback is very interesting because if you believe in my thesis that the market's going to rally into year end and beyond into the first quarter earnings season in January or fourth quarter earnings season, I think Credo is going to likely test those previous spike highs that we saw just a week ago, really.
Yeah, speaking of earnings, I think that's the big standout here for me is looking at how well this company has done in earnings, not just most recently, but really the past 2 quarters. It's done so well. Talk about why we're seeing such growth in their earnings.
Well, we're seeing growth because of the data center build out. So everybody sort of uses NVIDIA as the poster child for the AI revolution. And they are, because they have these fabulous GPU chips with new models coming out every 3 or 6 months. But you have to put the chips somewhere in order to use them. And somewhere are data centers. And that data center build out requires electricity, it requires cooling, and it requires products like Credo manufacturers to move data around quickly in the data centers. Now, having said that, there's one risk in Credo that the market acknowledges, and that's that Amazon is a major part of their revenue stream. Probably upwards of 55% of their revenue comes from the AWS cloud. If and when the data center build out sort of cadence slows down, Credo would be affected by that.
I think that's a really great point. What's going to be one of my questions too, Mark, is just as this build out is happening right now, it's not just Amazon, it's all the hyperscalers and other data centers out there that are just being built right now. We're really in this hyper growth phase. Once that slows down, is there any demand left for this company?
Well, that remains to be seen. And, companies have to do what they have to do. And that's a management decision. I would assume they want to ride that horse as long as they can. I don't think you want to look too far out in the future. And a lot of these companies are trades, not investments, especially when they've already gone up 300% in a year, but they're darn good trades.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this stock has almost roughly 15x in 5 years.
It
Incredible growth
has.
story for
Yeah.
this company. One thing I want to point out, we're talking about this stock on this channel for the first time after this big spike, but you've been recommending it on the power gauge for how long now?
We recommended it about 9 months ago, before it really had its first big run up. And so we advised our clients to take a very nice profit in Credo, ahead of that April crash when Liberation Day tanked the market. So we've been following the stock for quite a while. The earnings continue to roll out very positively, and it's an attractive way and a less path less taken, if you will, to participate in the AI boom.
Yeah, well, if you want to take a look at what the Power Gauge has to say about this stock and the other 2 stocks on our list, scan the QR code now or click a link we have for you in the description. It's a free look at, again, Marc Chaikin's Power Gauge system and what it says about the 3 stocks we're talking about today. So, Mark, thank you again for sharing some of these stock picks with our viewers on MarketBeat. We always appreciate having you on. Let's move on to that next stock that you have in semiconductors. Again, this is one I think we've heard on the channel here before, but not too often. It's not a name you hear a lot of.
Well, I think we're talking about Lam Research, and Lam Research, from my point of view, is more of an investment because Lam Research makes the machines that semiconductors are made on. So, in the semiconductor ecosystem, you have the fabricators, and we're going to talk about one of them in a minute. But the fabricators need machinery, and so everybody has their own area of expertise. In this case, Lam Research, along with a company called AMAT, Applied Materials, Lam Research makes the machines that are used to fabricate or manufacture semiconductor chips, the silicon wafers that drive this whole exciting revolution. So, Lam Research has been a favorite stock of mine for over 3 years. This is more, to me, of an investment opportunity because as long as they're building semiconductor chips, they need Lam Research.
Yeah, and unlike the first company we were talking about, those semiconductor chips are going to continue to need to be produced even after the data center build out, even after more of this AI infrastructure is in place. There's always upgrades to chips. I think chips are going to be that one piece of the AI puzzle that continues to be improved and innovated and continue to be produced, right?
Exactly. And I should point out that Lam Research was the latest addition to our portfolio in our smart money trader publication, which comes out monthly, and that keys off Chaikin Money Flow, which is my creation, an indicator that's been in the marketplace for 40 years that measures what the smart money is doing, and the smart money has been buying Lam Research. So we recommended this about 3 weeks ago, and the stock is up nicely since then, but still attractive as a potential buy candidate here.
I think that's the one thing on this one that I wanted to talk about is it's really near that all-time high for the company, definitely towards the top of that 52-week range for this stock. When it comes to an AI stock like this, where we're seeing a lot of attention, a lot of institutional buying, is it a sign for investors, retail investors, to still get in, even if it is towards the top, if you're looking at this as more of a long-term investment?
Well, if you're a long-term investor, it doesn't really matter. If you're a trader, then you want to look for a bit of a pullback. We saw one deep pullback in November. Just recently, we had a couple of days where there was something overhanging the market in terms of policy out of Washington, and you got a little bit of a pullback on Lam Research, along with a lot of other technology stocks. So you raise a good point, Bridget. It really depends on what your game plan is for the stock market, but as a long-term investment, Lam Research is indispensable to the semiconductor industry, and as you point out, semiconductors make the world go round right now.
They absolutely do. One more question on this one before we move on to the last pick you have for us today. I want to talk about competitors. I know Lam Research is making the materials needed to build semiconductor chips. Are there other companies out there that are competitors, and how much of the competitive space does Lam Research have?
Well, Applied Materials, AMAT, is in the same space. The thing with the semiconductor industry is that the demand is so strong right now for not just for NVIDIA chips, but AMD and all the other sub manufacturers. They're not going to be looking around for alternative suppliers. They need proven performance out of technology that they trust. And so, sure, there are always people in a competitive landscape where growth is so good that it's attracting competitors. But Lam Research is entrenched with their customers, and I don't think competition is an issue here. It's not like electric cars or electric vehicles where someone puts a flashier body on a chassis and then says we've got the best looking car on the road. This is nuts and bolts, and it affects the P&L of these companies. The ability to turn out these silicon wafers is critical to the growth of the industry and to the AI boom.
Well, that moves us right into the third stock that you have for us today. One of those companies that's actually manufacturing these chips, right?
Yeah, this is Taiwan Semiconductor, a company that's not really on the forefront or top of mind for people when they think about the industry. But guess what? Taiwan makes the chips. They make it for NVIDIA. And here's the story that tells really, it gives you insight into what Taiwan Semiconductor does. When a new management took over Advanced Micro Devices, AMD, they wanted to focus on innovation, not manufacturing. So they outsourced all their manufacturing of their chips to Taiwan Semiconductor. And so that's a big tell as to what Taiwan Semiconductor does. They're basically they're what's known as a foundry. And a foundry is a company that manufactures and makes the chips, and they could make them for NVIDIA, for AMD, for Apple, you name it. They're there. And their business is expected to grow about 35% in the coming year, according to management. All of these stocks have bullish power gauge ratings. Our 20 factor model is bullish on these stocks. And these are the best of the best in the semiconductor space. And they're all doing a little different. They have a different niche. It's easy to say, okay, NVIDIA, AMD, and I'm done. But no, there's many, many opportunities in the semiconductor space, and these are three that really stand out.
Yeah, they definitely do all have a different role in the process of making the chips and are
Exactly.
crucial in their own right, absolutely. I think Taiwan Semiconductor, there's more of a conversation to be had here talking about their U.S. manufacturing plants. We talked a lot about this company early on in the year when tariffs were a bigger part of the story. Is that still, is there any new news happening with Taiwan Semiconductor and building some plants and manufacturing facilities in the U.S.?
Taiwan Semiconductor is planning to build chips in the U.S., which is a good thing because obviously being so close to China and a former adversary, if you will, there's always the buzz in the marketplace that China could go to war and try and annex Taiwan's. I don't think it's going to happen, but stranger things have happened in life. But the fact that they're building in the U.S. is a good thing. Diversify their manufacturing, make them more, put them more in line with the Build America and America First policies of the Trump administration.
Yeah, absolutely. One other thing that stood out to me, just looking at the stock on MarketBeat, this is a company with $1.5 trillion market cap. It's a giant company, and right now we are only tracking 7 analysts that are following this stock. Why do you think that is? Why is Taiwan Semiconductor not getting the same attention as some of the other, bigger names involved in chip making right now?
It's probably not as sexy. I think in a sense, it's a commodity play. And when I say that, they're not innovating new chip designs. They're figuring out how to build other people's advances like NVIDIA and AMD. So it may just not have the excitement of an NVIDIA or AMD or a Qualcomm. And so it's just not on people's radar screens. It may just be viewed as more of a commodity play in the semiconductor space, but it sure is a profitable commodity play.
Yeah, absolutely. They have had a tremendous earnings season, a tremendous performance for the stock overall. You can check out more of the performance of this stock and the other two that we talked about by going to check out this free Power Gauge report on all three of these stocks. Again, normally you have to subscribe for the system and the data that Chaikin Analytics shares through the Power Gauge, but we have a free look at what the Power Gauge has to say about these three companies. You can scan that QR code or click the link in the description. Mark, thank you again so much for your time. Always so many insights when we talk to you. I do want to get your last insights on Bridget's Buys. This is the company that I'm going to add to my watch list. This is a new watch list I'm tracking on MarketBeat. And I think of the three names we talked about today, the first one we talked about is the most interesting story to me, and that's Credo. I just think the pullback is really nice in this company. And also just to see how bullish the ratings are on this company. It seems to be doing so well. I'm a little concerned that we might have missed all of the major growth in this one, but I'd love to get your thoughts. Do you think that's a good pick to add to my watch list out of the three we talked about today?
I do, Bridget. And the reason is that Wall Street brokerage firms are raising their price targets. Just last week, after the earnings came out, Bank of America raised their price target to 250. Stocks trading at around 174 this morning. So I think you're spot on.
Wonderful. Well, Mark, thank you again so much for your time today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Had you heard of any of these names before? I know Credo is the first time we talked about it on our channel, but have you been already following this for a long time? I'd love to hear from you in the comments and what you think about the chip sector in general, if you're bullish on the future of this sector going into the new year too. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for watching, everyone. As always, happy investing.